courtroom smelled of polished wood and broken dreams. Tonia Barrett sat perfectly still at the defendant's table, her curvy figure wrapped in a black suit that cost more than most people's cars, purchased back when she still believed the world made sense. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek bun, her makeup flawless, because even in ruin, she refused to look defeated. "The evidence is overwhelming," the prosecutor declared, his voice echoing off marble walls. "Ms. Barrett systematically embezzled millions from Barrett Industries, funneling money into offshore accounts while her employees lost their pensions. Every word was a lie. Every document was forged. And the man who'd orchestrated it all sat 3 rows back, wearing grief like an expensive cologne." Marcus Barrett dabbed at dry eyes with a handkerchief, playing the devastated husband so convincingly that several jurors looked at Tonia with disgust. She'd built Barrett Industries from nothing, turned a failing startup into an empire worth billions. And Marcus had stolen it all, then framed her for his crimes with surgical precision. The judge's gavel fell like a gunshot, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Tonia heard nothing but white noise as bailiffs approached. She caught Marcus's eye across the chaos. He smiled, small, private, triumphant. That smile said what his testimony hadn't, that he'd always been smarter, always been better, always been the one truly in control. She'd been a fool to trust him, a fool to love him, a fool to believe partnership meant anything when power was on the line. 3 months later, the federal prison in upstate New York was exactly as cold and unforgiving as expected. Tonia had lost 20 pounds she couldn't afford to lose, though her curves remained defiant even under shapeless prison uniforms. She'd learned to sleep through screaming, to eat food that tasted like cardboard, to disappear into herself when the other inmates got too close. She was marking another day in her mental calendar when the guard appeared at her cell. "Barrett, you've got a visitor." Tonia hadn't had a single visitor since her conviction. Her so-called friends had evaporated the moment the handcuffs clicked shut. Her family had chosen to believe Marcus's tearful interviews over her protests of innocence. The visiting room was divided by thick plexiglass. On the other side sat a man who made the sterile space feel suddenly too small. He was Korean, perhaps in his mid-30s, with the kind of face that belonged on billboards, sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes, perfectly styled black hair. His suit probably cost more than her legal defense had. He studied her with the focused intensity of a predator evaluating prey, but there was something else in his gaze too, something that made her spine straighten despite her exhaustion. "Tonia Barrett," he said, his voice accented but precise, carrying an authority that suggested he was used to being obeyed. "My name is Dee Hyun, and I'm going to get you out of here." She picked up the phone slowly. "I don't know you." "No, but I know you." He leaned forward slightly. "I know you built Barrett Industries from the ground up. I know your husband is a criminal who framed you for his own embezzlement. And I know that right now, he's restructuring your company to sell it in pieces to the highest bidders." The words hit like physical blows. Her company, her life's work, being dismantled while she rotted in a cell. "Why do you care?" she asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Dee Hyun's smile was dangerous. "Because your company owns patents I need. Technology Marcus doesn't understand and can't properly leverage. And because I don't do business with thieves and liars when I can do business with the brilliant woman who actually created something worth having. I'm in prison. I can't help you with anything." "You won't be in prison for long." He pulled out a business card, slid it across the small counter. Even through the plexiglass, she could read the name of one of the most prestigious law firms in New York. "My lawyers are already filing your appeal. They're very good at what they do. You'll be out within 2 months." "Why would you?" "Because I want something from you, Tonia. I'm not pretending otherwise." His eyes held hers with uncomfortable intensity. "I want to destroy Marcus Barrett. I want to take everything he stole from you and burn it to the ground. And then I want to rebuild it into something better. But I need you to do it." "What's the catch?" "The catch," he said slowly, "is that you'll be working for me. Your freedom, your legal team, your rehabilitation, your revenge, it all comes with a price. You help me acquire Barrett Industries. You give me everything you know about its operations, its vulnerabilities, its secrets. And when we're done, when your husband is ruined and your name is cleared, then we discuss what comes next. It was a devil's bargain, trading one form of control for another. But as Tonia stared at this mysterious billionaire who'd appeared from nowhere with promises of salvation, she realized she had nothing left to lose. And if I say no? Dee Hyun stood, buttoning his jacket with casual grace. Then you serve your full sentence, Marcus sells your company, and in 5 years you walk out of here to absolutely nothing. He paused. But you won't say no, Tonia, because you're not the kind of woman who lets men destroy her and gets away with it. He was right. Fury had been building in her chest for months, a white-hot rage that prison walls couldn't contain. Marcus thought he'd won. He thought he'd broken her. He had no idea what he'd actually created. 2 months, she said. I'll hold you to that. Dee Hyun's smile widened. I never make promises I can't keep. The next day, Tonia received 3 things that changed everything. A message from the law firm confirming they'd taken her case, a tablet loaded with news articles about Dee Hyun's business empire, and a strange flutter in her chest when she saw his face in the news photos. She crushed that feeling immediately. She'd trusted a handsome man with promises before. She'd married him. That mistake had cost her everything. Whatever Dee Hyun wanted from her, she'd give it, but only until she could take back what was hers and disappear. She was done being any man's asset, his prize, his tool. This time, she'd be the one in control. 7 weeks later, Tonia walked out of prison into blinding sunlight. The appeals process had moved with impossible speed, new evidence mysteriously appearing that raised reasonable doubt about her conviction. She suspected Dee Hyun's lawyers had done more than file paperwork. They'd probably bought off witnesses, intimidated prosecutors, called in favors from judges. She didn't care. Freedom tasted like champagne and possibility. A black Mercedes waited at the curb. The driver opened the rear door without a word. Inside, Dee Hyun sat with a tablet in his lap, wearing another impeccable suit, looking like he owned the world. Maybe he did. Welcome back, he said, not looking up. Tonia slid into the car, acutely aware of how shabby she looked in the donated clothes from the prison outreach program. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, we have work to do. He finally looked at her, and something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or appreciation. But first, we're stopping at my hotel. You'll need proper clothes, a meal, rest. You look like you've been through hell. I have been through hell. I know, his voice softened almost imperceptibly. That ends now. The hotel was the kind of place Tonia used to visit for business meetings, all marble and gold, with staff who moved like well-trained dancers. Dee Hyun led her to the penthouse suite without explanation. Inside, she found a team of stylists waiting, racks of designer clothes in her exact size, and a table laden with food that made her stomach growl audibly. How did you know my size? She asked, suspicious. I pay attention to details. He moved to the bar, poured something amber into a crystal glass. Take your time. I'll be in the office suite next door when you're ready to talk business. He left before she could argue. The stylists descended with professional efficiency, trimming her hair, applying subtle makeup, presenting outfit options until she chose a burgundy silk blouse and tailored black pants that made her feel human again. When she finally looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. The woman staring back looked powerful, dangerous, ready for war. That evening, she found Dee Hyun in his office suite, surrounded by monitors displaying financial data. He glanced up when she entered, and his hand froze halfway to his coffee cup. You look, he stopped. Seemed to reconsider his words. Professional. That's the idea. She sat across from him without being invited. So, what exactly do you want from me? For the next 3 hours, he laid out his plan. It was brilliant and ruthless, a hostile takeover that would strip Marcus of control, expose his crimes, and restructure Barrett Industries under Dee Hyun's conglomerate. But he needed inside information, passwords, contacts, hidden vulnerabilities, the location of evidence Marcus thought he'd destroyed. Tonia provided everything. She'd built that company, knew every secret, every weakness. And as she talked, she watched Dee Hyun's expression shift from professional interest to something darker, more intense. "You're remarkable," he said quietly when she'd finished. "Marcus was a fool to betray you." "Marcus is a sociopath who saw an opportunity and took it. Then we'll make sure he regrets it." Dee Hyun stood, moved to the window overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline. "I'm flying to Seoul tomorrow. You'll come with me. We need to coordinate with my team there, and it's safer if you're not in New York while we prepare the takeover." "I don't have a passport anymore. It was seized during." "Taken care of. My assistant will brief you on travel arrangements." He turned to face her, backlit by the city lights. "You'll stay in my guest house while we work. Everything you need will be provided." It was a gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. Tonia stood slowly. "I want something in writing, a contract that guarantees my freedom when this is over." "Of course, my lawyers will draw one up tonight." He stepped closer, close enough that she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and slightly dangerous. "But understand this, Tonia. I'm investing significant resources in clearing your name and destroying your husband. I expect loyalty in return." "You'll have my professional loyalty. That's all you're getting." Something flickered in his eyes, amusement maybe or challenge. "We'll see." The flight to Seoul was surreal. Tonia had flown first class before, but never on a private jet that felt more like a luxury apartment. Dee Hyun worked for most of the journey, speaking rapid Korean into his phone, occasionally switching to English when negotiating with international partners. She pretended to sleep, but actually watched him through half-closed eyes. He was fascinating, ruthless in business discussions, but occasionally pausing to eat the meal his assistant brought, thanking her in Korean with genuine warmth. There was a duality to him that she couldn't quite figure out. When they landed in Seoul, dawn was breaking over the city. The drive to Dee Hyun's estate took them through streets that gradually shifted from urban density to exclusive neighborhoods hidden behind high walls. His property was stunning, a modern mansion that somehow blended traditional Korean architecture with contemporary glass and steel. The guest house sat at the edge of the grounds, smaller but no less luxurious. "Rest today," Dee Hyun said as his driver unloaded her luggage. "Tomorrow we begin." The next morning, Tonia met his team, 3 lawyers, 2 tech specialists, and a woman named Min Seo who handled corporate intelligence with the efficiency of a seasoned spy. They treated Tonia with cautious respect, clearly unsure what to make of the American woman their boss had imported. "Your husband made a mistake," Min Seo explained, pulling up financial records on a massive screen. "He's been sloppy, overconfident. We've found evidence of his embezzlement in places he thought were untraceable." "Can we use it in court?" "Eventually, but first, we use it to force him into a position where he has to sell." Min Seo smiled coldly. "And when he does, we'll be the ones waiting with an offer he can't refuse." The strategy sessions lasted 12 hours. By the time they finished, Tonia's head was spinning with legal terms and financial projections. But underneath the exhaustion, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. A few days later, Dee Hyun found her in the garden of the guest house. She'd been unable to sleep, haunted by memories of everything she'd lost. He appeared silently, wearing casual clothes that made him look younger, more approachable. "You should be resting," he said. "I've rested enough in prison." She didn't look at him. "When do we move against Marcus?" "Soon. We're waiting for one more piece of evidence to fall into place." He sat on the bench beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Tell me something, Tonia. What will you do when this is over?" "I don't know. Rebuild, maybe. Start over somewhere he can't find me." "You could stay here, work with me." His voice was casual, but there was an undercurrent of something else. "Your skills are wasted in hiding." "I'm not looking for another boss, Dee Hyun." "I'm not offering to be your boss." He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his expression was unreadable. "I'm offering partnership, real partnership, not whatever sham your marriage was." Her heart did something complicated in her chest. "Why? You don't know me." "I know enough." His hand moved slightly, stopping just short of touching hers on the bench between them. "I know you're brilliant. I know you're resilient. I know you built an empire while married to a man who resented your success every single day." He paused. "And I know that when you walked into my office suite in New York wearing that burgundy blouse, something in me recognized something in you." The air between them felt suddenly charged, dangerous. Tonia forced herself to pull back. "This is business. Let's keep it that way." "Of course." But the slight smile on his face suggested he didn't believe her any more than she believed herself. The following week, everything accelerated. Marcus announced he was selling Barrett Industries to a Chinese conglomerate, a fire sale that would gut everything Tonia had built. Di Hyun's team moved immediately, filing injunctions, releasing strategic leaks to the press, applying pressure from every angle. Tonia watched it unfold from Di Hyun's office in downtown Seoul, where she'd taken to spending her days. He worked like a man possessed, 18-hour days, constant phone calls, meetings that stretched past midnight. But he always noticed when she brought him coffee, always thanked her, always asked if she was all right. It was unnerving. Marcus had never noticed her in that way, had never seen her as anything but an extension of his own ambitions. One particularly late night, after his team had finally left, Di Hyun leaned back in his chair and pinned her with an exhausted look. "Tell me the truth. Are you going to disappear the moment this is over?" She'd been gathering papers, preparing to return to the guest house. His question stopped her cold. "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." She set the papers down, faced him. "You want honesty? Fine. I don't trust this. I don't trust you. I don't trust myself around you. I've already made the mistake of relying on a powerful man who seemed like he wanted to help me." Di Hyun stood, moved around his desk with predatory grace. "I am nothing like your husband." "Aren't you? You saw an opportunity and took it. You wanted my company's assets, so you bought me out of prison." Her voice was sharp, defensive. "Don't pretend this is anything other than what it is." "You're right. I did see an opportunity." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "But what I want now has nothing to do with patents or technology or revenge." "Don't." The word came out breathless despite her best efforts. "Don't what? Don't tell you that I find you fascinating, that I think about you constantly, that every time you walk into a room I have to remind myself this is supposed to be business." His hand lifted, stopping just short of touching her face. "Don't tell you the truth. The truth is just another weapon." But her voice shook, betraying her. "Then let me prove otherwise." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, the gentlest touch imaginable. "Let me show you what it's like when someone wants you for you, not for what you can give them." She should push him away, should maintain the professional distance she'd promised herself, should remember that powerful men were dangerous and trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she kissed him. It was like touching a live wire. His arms came around her immediately, pulling her close as the kiss deepened from tentative to desperate. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be desired, to be wanted, to have someone hold her like she was precious instead of convenient. Di Hyun lifted her easily, setting her on the edge of his desk. His hands framed her face. His kiss devastating in its intensity. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her lips. "Tell me this is a mistake." "It is a mistake." "I don't care." He kissed her again, and she felt herself falling, drowning, losing every careful defense she'd constructed. The night blurred into heat and desperate touches, into whispered words she'd pretend later she didn't mean, into a connection that felt nothing like business and everything like danger. When she finally pulled away, breathing hard, reality crashed back in. "I should go." "Stay." His voice was rough, his eyes dark with want. "I can't." She slid off the desk, straightening her clothes with shaking hands. We shouldn't have." "Tonia." "I'll see you tomorrow. We have the board meeting to prepare for." She fled before he could argue, before she could make an even bigger mistake. The next morning, she woke in the guest house with regret and want warring in her chest. She'd crossed a line she'd sworn she wouldn't cross, had let herself trust when she knew better. She avoided Hyun all day, claiming she needed to review documents privately. But that evening, Min Seo appeared at her door with devastating news. "Marcus knows you're here. He knows you're working with Hyun." The other woman's face was grim. "He's filed a restraining order claiming you're stalking him, and he's threatening to press charges for corporate espionage." The world tilted. "He can't prove anything." "He doesn't have to. He just has to create enough doubt that your involvement damages Hyun's case." Min Seo handed her a tablet with news articles already circulating online. "Convicted felon teams up with foreign billionaire in revenge plot." The optics are terrible. Tonia read the headlines with growing horror. Marcus had moved faster than expected, had played his next card with perfect timing. And now she was a liability, not just to herself, but to Hyun and everything they'd been building. "I have to leave," she said quietly, "before I destroy everything." Hyun won't let you." "Hyun doesn't get a say." She looked up, forcing strength into her voice. Tell him I'm sorry, but I won't be the reason this falls apart." That night, while Hyun was at a dinner meeting across the city, Tonia packed a single bag. She had some money from an old account Marcus didn't know about, enough to disappear for a while. She'd go somewhere remote, somewhere he couldn't find her. She was halfway down the garden path when a voice stopped her cold. "Going somewhere." Hyun stood blocking the gate, still in his suit from dinner, his expression thunderous. Behind him, the driver waited at the car. He must have called them when he realized she was leaving. "I'm protecting you," she said. "Marcus is using me to undermine the takeover. If I leave, you can claim I acted independently, that you were deceived." "Do you really think I'm that weak?" He moved toward her with controlled fury. "That I'd let some bad press scare me away from what we're building?" "It's not about being weak. It's about being smart." "Smart would be trusting me. Smart would be fighting instead of running." He stopped directly in front of her. "Where were you going to go, Tonia? Back to hiding? Back to letting him win?" "I'm not letting him." "You are. You're doing exactly what he wants, isolating yourself, cutting off your allies, playing the victim." His hands closed on her shoulders, firm but not painful. "I told you I wasn't like your husband. Prove you believe me. Stay and fight." Tears she'd been holding back for months suddenly broke free. "I'm so tired of fighting." "I know." His voice gentled, his thumb brushing away a tear. "So let me fight for you. Let me prove that someone can be on your side without wanting to control you." He pulled her close and she didn't resist. "Just stay, please." She stayed. The following morning, Hyun held a press conference that changed everything. He didn't hide Tonia's involvement. He celebrated it, detailed her accomplishments, explained the evidence proving her innocence, and dared Marcus to a public legal battle. "Tonia Barrett is a brilliant businesswoman who was framed by a criminal," he told the assembled reporters. "And I'm proud to work with her in exposing the truth." The gamble paid off. Within hours, other Barrett Industries employees came forward with their own stories of Marcus's manipulation. The narrative shifted from convicted felon seeks revenge to innocent woman fights back. Tonia watched the press conference from Hyun's office, something warm and terrifying growing in her chest. He just put his entire reputation on the line for her. When he returned, she was waiting. That was reckless. That was necessary. He moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "Marcus wanted to make you a liability. I made you an asset he can't attack without destroying himself. You could have told me you were planning that. You would have tried to stop me." He handed her a glass, his fingers brushing hers deliberately. "I don't ask permission when I know I'm right." "That's arrogant." "That's honest." He raised his glass. "To honesty and to not running away in the middle of the night." She clinked her glass against his, met his eyes. "To not running away." But even as she said it, part of her wondered if staying was the biggest mistake of all. A few days later, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of Marcus's mistresses, because of course he had mistresses, contacted Min Seo with evidence. Emails, financial records, even recorded conversations where Marcus bragged about framing his wife. He's been paying her off for years, Mincio explained, pulling up the files. But apparently he recently cut her stipend. Hell hath no fury and all that. The evidence was damning. More than damning, it was exactly what they needed to destroy Marcus's credibility and potentially put him in prison. Dee Hyun's lawyers filed everything with the courts immediately. By the end of the week, Marcus's legal team was scrambling, his board of directors was demanding answers, and his carefully constructed image was crumbling. The sale to the Chinese conglomerate fell through. Barrett Industries' stock plummeted, and Marcus made his first serious mistake. He agreed to meet with Dee Hyun to negotiate. The meeting took place in a neutral location, a conference room at a Manhattan law firm. Tonya insisted on being there, though Dee Hyun's lawyers advised against it. "I need to see his face when he realizes he's lost," she said. Dee Hyun studied her for a long moment. "Then you'll be there, but stay close to me." There was something possessive in the way he said it, something that should have annoyed her but instead made her feel protected. She was getting dangerously used to his presence, to the way he watched over her like she was something precious. She was starting to trust him, and that terrified her more than Marcus ever had. Marcus arrived with his lawyers, wearing the same charming mask he'd used to fool her years ago. But when he saw Tonya sitting beside Dee Hyun, the mask slipped. "You shouldn't be here," he said coldly. "This is my company. I have every right to be here." Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. The negotiation was brutal. Dee Hyun laid out his terms with surgical precision. Marcus would sell his controlling share to Dee Hyun's conglomerate for a fraction of its value, or face criminal prosecution with the new evidence. The company Tonya had built would be restructured under new management. "And what does she get?" Marcus sneered, nodding at Tonya. "Your billionaire boyfriend's protection." "She gets her freedom, her reputation, and justice." Dee Hyun's voice was ice. "Things you tried to take from her." "She built that company with my money." "She built that company with her brilliance while you coasted on her success." Dee Hyun leaned forward, all pretense of civility gone. "You're a parasite who almost destroyed something remarkable. Be grateful I'm offering you anything at all." Marcus's lawyers were already pulling him toward acceptance. The evidence was too damaging to fight. Within an hour, the papers were signed. Tonya watched her husband, ex-husband, she reminded herself, walk out of the conference room a broken man. She waited for satisfaction, for triumph, for the vindication she'd dreamed about in prison. Instead, she just felt empty. That evening, Dee Hyun took her to dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the Manhattan skyline. They'd flown back to New York immediately after the meeting, and Tonya felt like she was moving through a dream, everything happening too fast, too surreal. "You're quiet," Dee Hyun observed, studying her across the candle-lit table. "I thought I'd feel different, victorious maybe. Or at least relieved." She set down her wine glass. "Instead, I just feel lost." "That's normal. You've spent months focused on survival and revenge. Now that it's over, you have to figure out who you are beyond that." His hand moved across the table, covering hers. "But you don't have to figure it out alone." "What happens now, with the company?" "We restructure, bring in new management, and if you want..." He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "There's a position for you, Chief Innovation Officer, full control over the technology division. Salary and stock options that reflect your actual value, not what Marcus decided you were worth." It was everything she should want. A chance to reclaim her legacy, to rebuild what was stolen. But accepting meant staying in Dee Hyun's orbit, continuing this dangerous dance between professional and personal. "I need time to think about it." "Of course," but something flickered in his eyes, disappointment maybe or concern. "Take all the time you need." The next morning, Tony awoke in the penthouse suite Dee Hyun had provided, separate from his own, careful to maintain boundaries even as those boundaries grew increasingly blurred. She found a package waiting outside her door. Inside was a new phone, already programmed with contacts, and a handwritten note in D. Hyun's precise script. "Your old life is gone. Time to build a new one. Whatever that looks like, I'm here. DH." She stared at the note for a long time, something dangerous and warm blooming in her chest. He was giving her choice, giving her freedom, even as every instinct told her he wanted her to stay. She spent the day walking through Manhattan, reacquainting herself with a city that had moved on without her. She visited the old Barrett Industries building, now being rebranded under D. Hyun's conglomerate. The receptionist didn't recognize her, which felt fitting somehow. Her phone rang as she stood outside, staring up at the building she'd once commanded. It was Minseo. "There's a problem. Marcus is making noise about contesting the sale. His lawyers found some loophole they think they can exploit." The exhaustion hit immediately. Can they actually do anything? Probably not, but they can drag this out, create more bad publicity, make everything harder. Minseo hesitated. "D. Hyun wants to know if you're willing to testify. If we go to trial, your testimony about Marcus's original crimes would be devastating to his case." It meant facing Marcus again, meant reliving everything in public, meant staying in New York, staying in this fight, staying close to D. Hyun. "Tell him yes, I'll testify." That night, D. Hyun appeared at her suite with takeout and a bottle of wine. "Minseo said you agreed to testify. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. This is my fight, too." She let him in, suddenly grateful not to be alone. Marcus needs to face consequences for what he did. They ate in comfortable silence, the tension between them shifting into something easier, more natural. D. Hyun told her about restructuring plans, about new technologies they were developing, about markets in Asia where Barrett's patents could revolutionize entire industries. "You're really passionate about this," she observed. "I'm passionate about building things that matter, about taking something broken and making it better." He looked at her directly. "About people who deserve second chances." "Is that what I am to you? A second chance?" "You're not a project, Tonya. He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "You're someone I admire, someone I want in my life professionally and personally, but I won't push if you're not ready." The honesty disarmed her. She reached across the coffee table, took his hand. "I'm terrified of being ready, of trusting someone again." "I know." His fingers laced through hers. "So we'll go slowly. We'll keep it professional until you feel safe. And if you never feel safe with me that way, then we'll figure out how to work together anyway." It was the perfect thing to say. The kind of patience she'd never experienced from Marcus, who'd always pushed and manipulated until she gave him what he wanted. "What if I don't want to go slowly?" The words escaped before she could stop them. D. Hyun's eyes darkened. "Then we won't." This time, when he kissed her, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously. They moved from the couch to her bedroom in a tangle of desperate hands and breathless kisses, shedding professional distance along with their clothes. He touched her like she was art, like every curve deserved attention and worship. After Marcus's perfunctory affection and eventual neglect, D. Hyun's focused intensity was overwhelming. "You're beautiful," he whispered against her skin. "Remarkable, mine." That last word should have triggered alarms. Instead, it sent heat pooling through her entire body. The night dissolved into sensation and connection, into a kind of intimacy she'd forgotten existed. When it was over, they lay tangled together, her curves fitted against his lean strength, both breathing hard. "Stay tonight," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." His arms tightened around her. "Not unless you send me away." She fell asleep feeling safer than she had in years. Like maybe, finally, she'd found someone who saw her as a partner instead of a possession. She woke alone. Panic hit immediately, memories of Marcus leaving after intimacy, avoiding her for days, making her feel used and ashamed flooding back. But then she smelled coffee, found a note on the pillow, "Early meeting in Seoul, back tonight. Breakfast is in the kitchen, miss you already. DH." The relief was disproportionate. She showered and dressed, found the elaborate breakfast he'd apparently ordered before leaving, all her favorites, things she'd mentioned casually in passing. He'd been paying attention. Her phone buzzed with a text. "How are you feeling?" She typed back, "Good, scared, confused." His response came immediately. "That's honest. I'll take honest over comfortable any day. Dinner tonight? We should talk about what happens next." She agreed, then spent the day trying to focus on reviewing legal documents for the upcoming trial. But her mind kept drifting to the night before, to the way Hyun had touched her, looked at her, held her like she was precious. She was falling for him, had maybe already fallen, and the realization terrified her more than Marcus ever had, because this time she had so much more to lose. That evening, Hyun returned with flowers and takeout from the restaurant where they'd had their first dinner. He looked exhausted but pleased, his jacket slung over one shoulder, tie loosened. "Seoul went well?" she asked, letting him in. "Very well, we finalized the Asian expansion plans." He set everything on the counter, then pulled her close, kissing her slowly. "But I missed you, spent the entire flight wanting to be here instead." The words melted something in her chest. "I missed you too." They ate dinner talking about everything except what had happened between them. The trial preparation, restructuring timelines, the news that several former Barrett employees wanted to return under new management. Finally, over wine, Hyun broached the subject. "Last night was a mistake." She couldn't help the defensive edge in her voice. "I was going to say incredible." He took her hand. "But we need to establish some things. I meant what I said before. I want you in my life, not as an employee, not as someone I'm using, as a partner. In business. In everything." His eyes held hers. "I know it's fast. I know you're still healing from what Marcus did, but I've never felt this way about anyone, Tonya, and I think you feel it too." She did. God help her, she did. "What if I hurt you? What if I can't trust anyone enough to make this work? Then we fail together, but at least we tried." He pulled her into his lap, cradling her against his chest. "I'm not Marcus. I won't betray you, won't manipulate you, won't try to control you. I just want to be with you in whatever way you'll let me." It was everything she needed to hear. She kissed him, pouring weeks of fear and hope and desperate want into it. "I want to try. I'm terrified, but I want to try." "Then that's enough." He stood easily, lifting her with him. "For now, that's more than enough." The following week, Marcus's legal team made their move. They filed an emergency injunction trying to halt the sale, claiming duress and misrepresentation. It was a desperate play, but it meant more court dates, more delays, more chaos. Tonya threw herself into preparation, working with Hyun's lawyers to build an airtight case. They spent long hours in conference rooms, reviewing every document, anticipating every argument. But they also stole moments. Quick kisses in empty hallways, late dinners in his office, nights tangled together in her suite or his, building something fragile and fierce between them. One evening, as they reviewed testimony notes, Hyun's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned, then answered in rapid Korean. His expression shifted from confusion to fury in seconds. "What is it?" she asked when he hung up. "Marcus is spreading rumors that you seduced me to get revenge, that our relationship is just you manipulating another wealthy man." His jaw was tight with anger. "He's trying to undermine your credibility before the trial." The words hit like a punch. What if people believe him? "They won't, because it's not true." He cupped her face gently. "But I need you to know, if being with me publicly hurts your case, I'll step back. I'll keep our relationship private until after the trial, whatever you need." The offer meant everything. He was willing to hide what they had, willing to let people think she was just his employee, all to protect her. "No," the word came out fierce. "I'm done hiding, done letting Marcus control the narrative." She stood, packing the office. "He wants people to think I'm weak, that I need men to save me. Let's show them he's wrong." Hyun smiled slowly. "What did you have in mind?" The next day, they held a joint press conference. Tonya stood beside Hyun, wearing a power suit that fit her curves perfectly, and told her story, all of it. The betrayal, the frame job, the prison time. And then she detailed every piece of evidence proving Marcus's crimes, holding nothing back. "My ex-husband wants you to believe I'm a victim who seduced a billionaire for revenge," she said, looking directly at the cameras. "The truth is, I'm a survivor who found an ally. D. Hyun didn't save me. He gave me the resources to save myself. And together, we're going to make sure Marcus Barrett faces justice for what he did." D. Hyun spoke next, laying out the business case with clinical precision. Then he did something unexpected. He reached for Tonia's hand, held it in front of everyone. "I won't apologize for caring about Tonia," he said simply. "She's brilliant, resilient, and remarkable. And yes, we're together. Because unlike her ex-husband, I recognize her value as a person, not just as an asset." The reporters erupted with questions. But as Tonia stood there, hand in hand with D. Hyun, facing the cameras together, she felt something shift. For the first time since her arrest, she wasn't running or hiding or protecting herself. She was fighting, and she wasn't alone. The trial began 3 weeks later. Marcus's lawyers fought viciously, but the evidence was overwhelming. The mistress testified, detailing years of payoffs and pillow talk about his crimes. Former employees testified about his manipulation and fraud. The forensic accountants showed how he'd systematically embezzled while framing Tonia. On the day Tonia testified, D. Hyun sat in the front row of the gallery, his presence a silent anchor. She told the truth, all of it, without tears or drama. Just the facts of how she'd built a company, trusted a man, and paid the price for both. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint her as bitter and vengeful. She smiled and agreed. "Yes, I'm bitter. My husband framed me for his crimes and let me go to prison. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice. There's a difference." The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, fraud, perjury, conspiracy. Marcus Barrett was going to prison for a very long time. Tonia watched them lead him away in handcuffs, and this time she felt it. The closure, the vindication, the relief. It was over. Finally, truly over. That night, D. Hyun took her to the same restaurant where they'd had dinner after the first meeting with Marcus. But this time, everything was different. "You were incredible today," he said, raising his wine glass. "Strong, honest, powerful. I had good support." She clinked her glass against his. "Thank you for everything, for believing me when no one else did." "I didn't just believe you, I saw you." He set down his glass, took her hand across the table, "and I fell in love with what I saw." The words hung between them, heavy and precious. Tonia's breath caught. "D. Hyun." "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." His thumbs stroked over her knuckles. "I love you, Tonia. Not because you're brilliant in business or because you survived hell or because you're beautiful, though you're all those things. I love you because you're you. Complicated and fierce and still learning to trust, but real in a way most people never manage to be." Tears welled up, happy tears this time. "I love you too. I'm terrified of it, but I do." "Good." He smiled. The genuine warmth she'd learned meant he was truly happy. "Because I have a proposition for you." He pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Inside was a business proposal, a partnership agreement making her equal owner of the restructured Barrett Industries, now being renamed something new, Barrett D Innovations. "Equal partners," he said, "in business and in everything else, if you want it." She stared at the documents, hardly daring to believe. You're giving me back my company." "I'm giving you our company. We'll build it together. No one in charge, no one controlled. Just 2 people creating something better than either of us could manage alone." He stood, came around to her side of the table, knelt beside her chair. "Marry me, Tonia. Be my partner in every sense of the word." "That's crazy. We've only known each other a few months." "I've known you long enough to know I want forever." He pulled a ring from his pocket, a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I'm not Marcus. I'll never be Marcus. I'll spend every day proving that if you need me to, but marry me anyway." She was crying now, overwhelmed by emotion and possibility. Yes, you crazy, intense, wonderful man, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her deeply, not caring about the other diners watching. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling through tears. "There's one condition," she said, trying for stern but failing. "We sign a prenup, one that protects both of us and keeps everything equal." "Already drafted. My lawyers sent it over this morning," he grinned. "I told you I pay attention to details." The wedding happened 6 months later, a small ceremony in Seoul with only close friends and family. Tonya wore a dress that celebrated her curves instead of hiding them, and when Lee Hyun saw her walking down the aisle, his eyes shone with unshed tears. They honeymooned in Bali, 2 weeks of peace and privacy where they could just be together without cameras or lawyers or corporate politics. They talked about the future, the company they were building, the family they might want someday, the life they were creating from the ashes of her old one. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked one evening, watching the sunset from their villa. "Taking a chance on me?" "Never." He pulled her close, kissed her temple. "Best investment I ever made." "I'm not an investment." "No, you're my partner, my love, my home." He turned her to face him. "Thank you for trusting me, Tonya. I know how hard that was." "Thank you for being worth the risk." 2 years later, Barrett D Innovations was thriving under their joint leadership. Tonya had been officially cleared of all charges, her record expunged, her reputation restored. Marcus was serving a 15-year sentence, all his assets seized to pay restitution to the people he'd defrauded. And Tonya was happy. Truly, deeply happy in a way she'd never experienced before. She stood in the executive suite they shared. Her idea, wanting to work side by side with her husband instead of in separate offices, reviewing quarterly reports when Lee Hyun appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Come home," he murmured against her neck. "It's late, the reports can wait." 5 more minutes. "You said that an hour ago." He spun her chair around, knelt in front of her. "Tonya, come home with me. I made dinner, opened good wine, and I want to spend the evening with my wife instead of with spreadsheets." She smiled, running her fingers through his hair. "You're very persuasive." "I'm very in love." He stood, pulling her with him. "And I'm very good at knowing what's important. Work will always be here. But tonight, right now, I want you to myself." They drove to the penthouse they'd bought together, home in a way nowhere else had ever been. Over dinner, Lee Hyun proposed a new venture, opening offices in London, expanding their innovation division, taking bigger risks. "We're ready," he said, eyes bright with excitement. "We've proven what we can do. Now let's see how far we can go." Tonya listened to his pitch, occasionally interjecting with questions or suggestions, their back and forth the product of 2 sharp minds working in perfect sync. This was partnership, real partnership, where both voices mattered equally, where respect and trust replaced control and manipulation. "I have some news too," she said when he finished. "I had coffee with Min Seo this morning. She wants to spin off her corporate intelligence division into a separate consultancy, and she wants us to be founding investors." "That's brilliant. Min Seo's work was crucial to everything we've built." He reached for her hand across the table. "What do you think?" "I think we should do it. She's earned our trust and our support." Tonya paused, squeezed his hand. "And I have one more piece of news. I'm pregnant." The wine glass froze halfway to his lips. "You're..." "About 8 weeks. I found out this morning. Wanted to tell you in person, not over the phone from Seoul." She watched his face cycle through shock to joy to wonder. "Are you happy?" "Happy." He set down his glass carefully, then pulled her from her chair into his arms. "Tonya, I don't have words. A baby. Our baby." "Are you scared? Because I'm terrified." "Terrified," he agreed, his hand moving to rest gently on her still flat stomach. "But also ready. We'll figure it out together, like everything else." That night, lying in bed with his hand protectively on her stomach, Tonya reflected on how far she'd come. From betrayal and prison to love and partnership. From losing everything to building something better than she'd ever imagined. "I used to think Marcus destroyed me," she whispered into the darkness. "He tried." Lee Hyun's voice was drowsy but certain. "But you were never destroyable. You just needed someone who saw that." I needed someone who saw me, the real me, not who I could be useful as. She turned in his arms, studied his face in the dim light. Thank you for being that person. Thank you for letting me. He kissed her softly. Now sleep, you're growing a human, you need rest. She laughed but obeyed, drifting off feeling safe and loved and hopeful. The daughter they had 9 months later was named Minjai, after Min Seo and Di Hyun's mother. She was beautiful and fierce, crying with the kind of determination that made both parents laugh through their exhaustion. Tonia took 6 months away from the company, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Di Hyun split his time between the office and home, refusing to miss key moments with his daughter. When Tonia returned to work, they restructured again, creating more flexibility, hearing more support, proving that successful executives could also be present parents. The business magazines called it revolutionary. Tonia just called it balance. On Minjai's first birthday, surrounded by friends and family in their sole home, Di Hyun pulled Tonia aside. I have something for you. He handed her a small box. Inside was a key. What's this? The original Barrett Industries building in Manhattan. I bought it this morning. Thought you might want it back, not to run from there, but to create something new. A foundation, maybe, or a startup incubator. Whatever you want it to be. She stared at the key, overwhelmed by the gesture. He'd just given her back the building where she'd started her career, where Marcus had stolen everything. But this time, it would be hers on her terms. This is too much. It's exactly enough. He wrapped his arms around her from behind as they watched their daughter demolish her birthday cake. You built something remarkable once, and someone took it from you. Now you get to build something remarkable again. But this time, I'll be standing beside you, not trying to take credit. Tonia leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence, the certainty of his support. I love you, so much it still scares me sometimes. Good, love should be a little scary, it means it matters. He kissed her temple. But you don't have to be scared with me, I've got you, always. 5 years after meeting in a prison visiting room, Tonia Barrett, now Tonia D., stood on the rooftop of her reclaimed building, watching the sun set over Manhattan. Inside, the newly opened Women in Tech Incubator was hosting its first cohort of entrepreneurs, giving other women the resources and support she'd never had. Her phone buzzed with a text from Di Hyun. Minjai wants to know when Mommy is coming home. I want to know too, miss you. She smiled, typed back, on my way, save me some dinner. As she rode the elevator down to street level, past the floors where she'd once worked under Marcus's shadow, she reflected on the journey. The betrayal had nearly destroyed her, but it had also led her to someone who saw her worth, who partnered with her rather than competed against her, who loved her without needing to control her. She'd thought Marcus's frame job was the end of her story. Turned out it was just the beginning. Her driver pulled up, the same one who'd picked her up from prison all those years ago. Home, Mrs. D. Home, she agreed, sliding into the car. Home to the man who'd offered her a devil's bargain and then spent every day since proving he was anything but a devil. Home to the daughter who would grow up watching both parents share power equally, learning that partnership meant strength, not weakness. Home to a life she'd built on her own terms, with someone who'd never ask her to be anything other than exactly who she was. Tonia had been betrayed, imprisoned, and nearly broken. But in the end, she'd done more than survive. She'd found love, reclaimed her legacy, and built something better than she'd ever imagined possible. And that, she thought as the Manhattan skyline blurred past her window, was the best revenge of all. The end. Sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the greatest transformation. Tonia walked into that prison broken and walked out ready to reclaim everything, her empire, her dignity, and a love she never saw coming. Di Hyun didn't save her, he saw her, and that made all the difference. If this story spoke to you, if you felt Tonia's rage, her fear, her ultimate triumph, please like, comment, and subscribe for more dark romance stories where powerful women rise from the ashes and dangerous men learn that true partnership means standing beside, never above. What would you do if someone framed you for their crimes? Would you run, or would you fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, the best revenge isn't just success. It's building something so magnificent that those who doubted you can't look away. Until next time, keep fighting for what's yours.